Hi, and welcome to this Nextage tips and tricks video. My name is Johannes Liljenjard, and today we are going to look at the selection intent in NX. When looking at the selection intent in NX, there are three factors to take into consideration: the possibility, efficiency, and robustness. Meaning, are you able to select what you want to select? How efficient do you select what you want to select? And how does your selection adapt to changes made in previous features? In the example, I'll use the curve rule, but the three factors are applicable to point, face, and body selection as well. I'll be using this part to explain what I mean by the three factors. I've made this extrude, and the first thing I'm going to do is actually delete it. It's just to show what the final result is that I would like to achieve. So I'll just delete the extrude and go up and create a new one. So the first one was, is it possible for me to select what I want to select? Right now I'm just going to mouse over and select the sketch, and we can see that right now my curve rule up here is set to Infer Curves. That means that NX will guess for me what I want to select. And it selected the feature curves. So it selected the sketch feature itself with all the curves inside. And when we look here, I don't get the result that I had before because of the way the curves and the sketch has been made. So I deselect everything and say, okay, so I could go up instead and say single curve. And then I could select one curve, another curve. Now we see here that I actually end up with the same problem as before because my circles are one single curve. So what I could do instead, if I hold shift down to deselect, I can go up and say stop at intersection. And in this way I can take just a segment of that particular curve. And in that way I'll be able to select all the way around here and get the result that I wanted. This, however, takes quite a few clicks, as you can see. So maybe there's a more efficient method to do this. I'm going to reset my dialog box. This time I'm going to say connected curves. When I have connected curves, it's going to continue selecting the curves along a chain. The problem here is that here we are having two directions it could go in. So therefore it will automatically stop. If we say tangent curves, we're going to get the same result. But what we can do in both cases is that we can activate this follow fillet function that allows it to chain along the curves or along these fillets generated by the circle. And in that way you could see that by simply clicking one time I can select all the circumference of the part, and then afterwards I can select the inner holes. So one thing is the possibility, can I select what I want to select, and the other thing is how efficient do I select it. So you can see the second method was much more efficient. Then I can also choose region boundary curves. Here I can go in and select one region at a time. I personally think this is the most intuitive way to select your curves for your different features. And if you want to deselect, you hold down shift and deselect the curves. Okay, so just be aware that you select the region, but you deselect on the curves. And this here is about as efficient as my second method. So I needed a total of, if I just deselect everything here, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clicks. And if I reset and use the other method where I had tangent curves, follow fillet, we can see that I also need 5 clicks. The next thing is the robustness. And that's the last factor to take into consideration. Right now I used the follow fillet. So I selected the entire circumference, and then afterwards I selected the circles inside. And I'm going to say, okay, so now I've created this extrude, and now we're going to see how does it adapt to changes I make if I, for example, go into my sketch. So I double click to edit my sketch, and I found out I would like to have a hole in the middle. So I'm going to just make a circle here, and just for later references, I'll make a circle outside the sketch as well, or outside the profile that I created here. I'm gonna say finish sketch, and you can see nothing changed, even though I made the circle, as you can see. So I'm going to undo this, both of these two curves that I created, and then I'm gonna delete my extrude, and I'm going to create this, but this time, instead of using the tangent with follow fillet, I'm going to use the region boundary curves. So with the region boundary curves, I'll go in here and select, just as so I end up with the same part as before, same geometry. And now I'm going to edit the sketch one more time. I'm going to create a circle in the middle, and I'm going to create one outside as well. And I'm going to finish the sketch, and notice this time I actually got the hole inside the part, and that is because my extrude is now not looking at the curves, it's looking at the regions I selected. So now this curve here is conflicting with the region, or inside the region that I selected, and therefore it will use that curve now in its selection. So if I didn't want it, I could always choose to extrude it as well. The one outside is not associated with any of the selected regions, so therefore nothing will happen to that one. But now I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go into my sketch, and I'm going to delete the curves as I did before, and then I'm going to use my quick trim to just trim these curves here. And I say finish, and finish sketch. When I go in and use my extrude now, I can use the one called feature curves. When I mouse over the curves, notice that the feature out in the model history tree is being highlighted, and that's because I'm now selecting the feature. I then say OK, and now I'm going to change the sketch. I'm going to make the circles just as before, and one outside. And the reason why I had the one outside before is because now you'll see that my extrude is using all the curves that are residing inside my sketch, and therefore it will subtract this region here because it's going to use the sketch of the curve, the circle here, and it's going to add the circle out here to the selection of the extrude, because my extrude remembers it's looking at the entire feature and not just particular curves from that feature. To conclude, we looked at the possibility of selecting what we intended by changing the curve rule and the stop at intersection or follow fillet. We looked at the efficiency, which curve rule and selection tools are best for quickly selecting what we wanted to select, and we looked at the robustness of how does it change when we're changing, in this case, our sketch. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any colleagues that you think might benefit from it, feel free to share, and of course, stay tuned for more Nextage videos.